Good evening. I want to thank everybody for coming to the regular session of the City of South Fulton. I hope everybody voted today. If you haven't, polls closed. At this time, Mr. Clerk, I'd like you to announce any action that's been taken in executive session. Let's have a motion to close the executive session.
Oh.
Make a motion to close.
Properly moved second in discussion. All those in favor? Would you announce any action that was taken in executive session?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor and members of council. During today's executive session regarding personnel, a motion was made and seconded to confirm the nomination of Mr. Keith Meadows as the permanent police chief for the city of South Fulton, and to authorize the city manager to enter into an employment agreement consistent with the posted salary.
Okay. All right. Once again, congratulations to Mr. Meadows. At this time, Mr. Clerk, would you call the roll?
Okay, the city attorney would like for you all to consider that motion that was made by Councilmember Khalid and seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Baker. She would like you all to now, at this time, vote on that confirmation.
Yeah, you have to have a public vote.
Okay, you're absolutely correct. You're right. Okay, well, there's a motion.
Do we make a motion?
Yeah.
Okay, I make a motion to accept our city manager's nomination of Keith Meadows for police chief.
Second. Properly moved and second. Any discussion? All those in favor? That passes.
Can you
That's
say the
fine.
second part just now? Because you didn't include the part to enter into the contract.
Okay, so she's,
So you voted on that, so you're good with that, but now if you can do a second motion.
I'll
which
make a
was the
motion
second
to have our
part.
city manager enter into contract negotiations with Mr. Meadows,
Consistent with the posted salary.
consistent with the posted salary.
All right. Is there a second?
Second.
All those, is there any discussion? All those in favor? That passes. Yes. You took care of it. You took care of it. No. Okay, Mr. Clerk, you can call the roll.
this is 7:05. Mayor William Bill Edwards.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Mark Baker. Present. Councilmember Catherine Rao.
Present.
Councilmember Carmelita Gunness.
Present.
Councilmember Helen Z. Willis.
Present.
Councilmember Naima Gilliard.
Present.
Councilmember Rosie Jackson.
Present.
And Councilmember Khalid. Present. Mr. Mayor, you have a bill.
Okay, we will have the invocation by the chaplain followed by the pledge of allegiance.
Let us all stand. Let us pray. Dear gracious God, we think about all the good things you have done in our lives. So we thank you individually and collectively for what you have done. We ask your blessings to continue to fall afresh upon this city. We see it constantly, so we give you the praise. Continue to bless our elected officials, our mayor and city council, and all those who have been given the charge to charge this city to move forward. We thank you. Let us all say amen. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, sir. First, before we go any further, I'd like to give you privilege here, turn the floor to Mr. Lee.
Okay. We had 3 special birthdays this week. The first, I can only do it right now. Let me just pull it up. The first on July the 30th coming up is Ms. Angela Henderson. She is our amazing HR director.
Where is that?
Where is it?
All right.
We have a card for you up here. Happy birthday, Chloe. The second is for our malt liquor smooth mayor pro tem. My brother on council, Mr. Mark Baker. His birthday was last Friday. And then I just found out, last Saturday, I just found out that the young lady who keeps our mayor on point and on time, Miss Dolores Baskins, celebrated her birthday this Friday. So happy birthday, yo, happy birthday.
Baker, I'm gonna think about that. Also at this time, Mr. Manager, if you would like to introduce to the citizen, the new hires in our city, so.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Mayor, we have a few of them, but I would like to acknowledge a couple who are here tonight. So I know that Mr. Christopher Pike, our Economic Development Director in the back right, has joined us. He is here from Villa Rica. He has dived right in. I think he started working for us before he was on payroll, attended some of the budget sessions and things of that nature, but helped to transition Villa Rica into one of the fastest growing, the fastest growing city in the state of Georgia, and we think he can help us do the same. Also, Ms. Jolene Butts Freeman, who I know I just saw, our new communications director. Fulton. She's actually a longtime resident, formerly worked for Fulton County and left to be the communications director for the city of Kennesaw, and we stole her away from there and brought her back home. In addition to that, our assistant city manager, Ms. Melanie Winfield, who hails from us from Memphis, Tennessee. She has served in the role of deputy operating officer, assistant city attorney, as well as deputy director throughout the city of Memphis, the state of Tennessee, and the District of Columbia. And our purchasing manager, who you guys got very familiar with, Mr. Anthony Kerr, who has come to us most recently from the private sector, but he has also served in a similar capacity with the city of Atlanta, as well as one of the largest private firms that provides purchasing services to municipalities and cities. So I think he can help us on both sides. And so we have some other hires, of course, which we've sent you guys some information on, and our ranks are growing, but we are, excited to have these folks join the team.
This is very, very, I want to say this. Welcome, thank you for being on the team, and we need you. So I met with the economic development person this afternoon, and we're working. So we really appreciate all of you coming on. This is what we need to help us move this city forward. And I'm sure I speak for my colleagues when we say we're excited about all the new hires. Okay. Mr. Burke?
First item for your consideration is approval of the consent agenda. If I understand correctly, there's an interest to remove letter C, which is a request approval of staff recommendations for sanitation services, to remove that from today's consent agenda and to be considered separately later in the meeting.
Is that your motion, Ms. Gilliard?
No, my motion is really to hold it.
Okay. Your motion is to hold.
My motion is to hold it.
Okay.
I second.
Properly moved to second, in discussion.
Yes, I have a discussion. What does hold it?
To the next meeting.
To the next meeting.
Unless you specifically want.
To the next meeting.
Okay, to the next meeting. Is there any time sensitivity to this?
To
Hold the sanitation services to the next meeting.
So I believe that we are 2 weeks earlier than we promised to deliver it, but I would love to have it considered this evening.
Okay. If we don't, we'll be right on time.
Well, potentially. I think time is of the essence with this one, mainly because not only our local option sales tax, but we've got to be able to move forward and having somebody manage the process. And so the step tonight was to hope to vote it up or down so that we can then move forward in actually administering the services. And so That timeline was tight from the beginning, which is why we moved it up 2 weeks. Again, council can move it back, but it would definitely be the staff consideration to make a decision this evening.
Well, I know we're working on a lot of stuff, and
Well, I think that's
sometimes
our
time is of the
concern.
essence for us. So we're in discussion, any discussion?
Yes, if majority of the council is gonna vote to hold this, I would ask that, you all meet with our city manager. I'm not in favor of holding it, for one thing, but if the votes are there to hold it, I mean, please make sure that you take this time to get all your questions and concerns out, so we will not be bottlenecked. We have to have the service stood up by November 2018, and this impacts millions of dollars of our local option sales tax.
Any further discussion? Mr. Baker,
I'd like to make a motion to rescind.
to do what?
To rescind.
To rescind?
My second.
Your second.
Yeah.
You can rescind.
You just withdraw.
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 We still in discussion?
Yeah.
I made the motion to, well, I didn't, you made the motion. So I will offer a second. I'm not willing to commit $8 to $12 million of our city's money for something I just got on Friday without talking to any of the other cities that have this service. I want to talk to some other cities.
Ms. Parliamentarian, did we get ready?
Khalid, rescind your initial motion since, and then at that point.
Ms. Gilliard has to rescind her original motion.
Oh, okay, well, Gilliard needs a second, and if no one else seconds, then the motion dies.
I offer my second.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Properly moved to second. Further discussion? All those in favor?
We're holding.
To hold.
To hold.
All right, that passes. 4-3.
Okay, the motion to hold passes. That leaves you with 2 items for approval of the consent agenda, both of which are meeting minutes, Tuesday, July 10th, and Monday, July 16th.
I'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion to accept the meeting minutes.
Properly moved to second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. Let's vote. That passes, Mr. Clerk.
Okay, the next item for your consideration is approval of the regular meeting agenda.
I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we hold the revised ethics ordinance. It was discussed that we're gonna remove that from the regular agenda and have a work session to discuss in detail.
Second.
Properly moved to second. Any discussion? All those in favor? All right, that be removed, be held until the next meeting. Ms. Wilson?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
So now you need to adopt today's regular meeting agenda as amended.
I make a motion to accept the agenda as amended.
Second.
Properly moved to second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? That passes. Mr. Clerk?
The next item for your consideration is the public comment portion of today's meeting. Speakers will be granted up to 2 minutes each, and public comment will not exceed 30 minutes. Mr. Mayor and members of council, I have received 11 speaker cards. If the first 3 speakers would please approach the podium at this time, Mr. Harold Reed, Mr. Ricky Lewis, and Mr. Jason Zepp.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Harold Reed. I reside in District 2. My address is 7521 Cole Lane. My original reason for attending this meeting really was to find out more about the new hires that have been added to the staff. However, once I saw the agenda, I noticed there was a presentation from Denton's that was made this evening. I'm really pleased with that. And I'm sure a lot of the other citizens of South Fulton are pleased with that also. During the push for cityhood, Myself and literally hundreds of other volunteers spread out over the entire area to try and get people to accept the vision that we had for South Fulton County. Not only what we were, but what we could be. By having Dentons make a presentation to you tonight, it should let you know that other people also now have grasped that vision as to what we can be. Now, a lot of times we want to say, oh, I can do it myself. But when you have experts who are offering you their services to do what they do every day, you owe it to us, the citizens, to make sure you give that every consideration you possibly can. Now, I don't know what their presentation is going to be. I don't know if they are the answer. But you do have someone now stepping up, saying, I can help you get to where you want to go. Now, a lot of times, again, like I know it's human nature to say, I can do it myself. But if you want a great meal, why not go with the best chef available? That's really all I have to say.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. Congratulations, first off, and may God bless y'all and guide y'all in y'all decisions. And this great opportunity in helping the people, residents of South Fulton. I'm here today to just tell you about a situation, speaking out for the concerned citizens, a lot of the senior citizens that reside in Camelot condominiums. There is a dire situation. There's a health and safety crisis that's there. Through mismanagement of the board of directors, a lot of this arson, murder that's taking place in that community. And I feel certain that somewhere within your legislative body, you have a way to remedy some of the situations that are there. I previously provided opportunities for housing for women that suffer from domestic violence. I have not been able to assist any women as of late for the last couple of years because the management will not adhere to some code violations. I just yesterday called the Code Enforcement Department, had opportunity to talk to a young lady named Belinda. She was very helpful. Not only that, she asked that an enforcement officer, Richardson, come out. He called this afternoon. I met him at the property prior to coming here tonight, and he wrote up the violations that he saw. I'm asking you to search within your capabilities, whatever you can do, to maybe shine a little light on that situation, because there's seniors that are suffering. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Following Mr. Zepp, Mr. Walt Ritter, Mr. A.W. Davis, would you also please approach the podium? Mr. Zepp.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. My name is Jason Zepp. I'm the Regional Vice President of Waste Industries here in Atlanta. First and foremost, I'd like to thank you for holding that and making that motion in this big decision for the city in regards to the sanitation and recycling services. We currently hold 56% of the constituent base within the city of South Fulton that we service. You're looking for a hauler to come and invest in the community of South Fulton and the city. We've already invested. We're here. That's why you see that delta in our cost proposal versus the others that made bids. We've already invested in the city. We're actively involved in the chamber, and I believe we're the only hauler involved in Keep South Fulton Beautiful, involved in that project as it stands. Obviously, we were surprised at the nomination for the hauler in regards to the bids that we saw come out. Our local presence, I go back to that, and I'm glad you asked that, Councilwoman Gums, for clarity. That was completely ignored in our bid package. If you read that RFP, it says, to the word, it says near the city, and that's completely false. We are within the city, 19,500 customers we already serve. We have facilities within the footprint of South Fulton, just on the outside of the boundaries, that employ over 100 people, including the folks that service the community in the city of South Fulton. Second, our small business utilization plan was also ignored completely. We have substantial documentation that was submitted by our subcontractors in that. There were 3 listed in that small business utilization plan that we've had from the beginning when this process came live last year. That was completely ignored, and citation of that failure is indicative of an appealable award, we believe. And then also lastly, I'd just like to say I'm grateful you brought up safety. Our Atlanta branches are some of the safest in the entire company of waste industry. We have data to prove that. Given the fact that the city of Atlanta is the 8th worst in the world in regards to congestion, and we're the 5th most dangerous occupation, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, that's pretty impeccable. And we'd like to keep it that way in the city of South Fulton. Our drivers that are already out there, they know the streets, they know the routes, they know their customers, they know the traffic flows, the patterns, and we'd like to keep it that way and partner. And lastly, the current contracts that we have, I think if you read the RFP and the documents that we submitted, you'll find glowing remarks from the city of Union City, the city of Fayetteville, Stockbridge, Noonan, and they're in there for a reason. It's our body of work.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and distinguished members of council. My name's Walt Ritter. I'm the district manager for advanced disposal. We also prepared a bid according to the specifications in the package and submitted it. Coming down here tonight was the intent to be awarded the bid, or at least voted upon. Advanced disposal's been in the Atlanta marketplace for years. We have 5 or 6 companies in the Atlanta marketplace, transfer stations. We are extremely involved in all the communities that we service. We are extremely excited to have the opportunity to come down and service the residents of your wonderful new city and work with you folks and form a partnership, and most of all, extremely looking forward to an opportunity to keep these smaller private haulers working in business and becoming part of the advanced disposal team. We look forward to working with you folks. Any questions, we're available. And once again, thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, sir.
Following Mr. A.W. Davis, Mr. Robert Stills, and Ms. Glenda Collins, would you please approach the podium? Mr. Davis.
My name is A.W. Davis. I live in District 4. I'm going to talk to you tonight as an American. Where you all are today, I was here 46 years ago. I am a proud conservative Republican and a proud supporter of President Trump. I'm going to ask you to please look up Henry Kissinger. Dr. Henry Kissinger gave an interview last week in New York, and he talked about what happened back in 1971-72. There are many secrets embedded in that conversation. Dr. Kissinger did not yield those secrets, and nor shall I. The other person that knew about those secrets, President Nixon, one of my favorite presidents, and also Zimmer Brzezinski. Those 3 people, trust me, will yield secrets that will help you to understand the actions of President Trump. President Trump is not against you. He's not your enemy. He loves this country, as we all do. But there are certain things that he has to do as President of the United States if the United States is going to remain what it is today. Strong, independent, and unforgiving. What we do because we want to remain as we are. As citizens, it is our job, our duty, and our responsibility to support our president. In your mind, some of the things that he does may be treasonous, but if you would get on the other side of that action, gain more information, more knowledge, and more wherewithal in your thinking, you will realize that he's not committing anything that even comes close to the word treasonous. Having that set aside, as a citizen of this particular city, there are 2 things that you need to do if you want to become one of the wealthiest cities in this state. I'm going to reserve those 2 things because I'm going to use those 2 things in a way to judge whether or not the economic development, which is a word I dislike, is doing what they need to do. At some point in time, I will yield those secrets to you. Enjoy your evening, and may God bless each of you.
Thank you,
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. My name is Robert Sills. I'm an attorney with Dentons. We appreciate your kind words, sir. I'm here on behalf of our client, Waste Industries, who you heard from just a moment ago. And to echo that, we do appreciate the council's decision to hold that decision. As someone who works with local governments every day, we understand, how important it is to both exercise due diligence in a transparent manner and also to provide quality services to constituents. And that's why, as you go back and you review the recommendation of council, we would encourage you to pay close attention to the items that Mr. Zepp pointed out were seemingly overlooked. Certainly we understand that the staff has a great deal going on, but we would hope that the council would pay close attention to the fact that Waste Industries is operating and will be operating locally and with local businesses, including local small businesses. And also that the equipment request in the RFP is met by Waste Industries' response. We understand that this is a difficult decision, and this is not a discussion to be had about sour grapes. However, we hope that the council, in its wisdom, will exercise transparency and make this review process available both for yourselves, for the proponents, and also for the public to ensure that the most responsible decision is made for the taxpayers, which we do trust that you will do. So we thank you for the time and for your consideration.
Thank you, sir.
Following Ms. Glenda Collins, Ms. Carmelita Childs, and Mr. Marcus Coleman.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Glenda Collins, District 5. I hope the Economic Director work with zoning to condense the zoning in order to create quality businesses for our city. We should not agree to rezone to create parking lots for other jurisdictions if the builder does not have enough space for a parking lot for the company. We should not enter into agreements with other jurisdictions without the input of the citizens for our city, and we must be considered when these decisions are made. Thank you.
Thank you.
In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, I bear witness that there is no God but Allah, who appeared to us in the person of Master Fard Muhammad. I further bear witness that the most honorable Elijah Muhammad is indeed the exalted Christ, and I would further bear witness that the most honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan is the vicar of Christ in our midst. It is in those three names that I would like to greet you all in the greeting words of Assalamu Alaikum, which simply means peace be unto you. I'm standing before you today on behalf of our indigenous ancestors who have paved the way for us, who have built up and bled and sweat and have helped build this country. And we have all these different holidays. We have Halloween, we have Boss Day, we have Mother's Day, we have Father's Day. Although every day we should honor our mother and father instead of just one day out of the year. So I am asking you to vote yes for Indigenous Day for our ancestors. If we can find it in our heart to just take a pause, take a moment and reflect back on who and how we got here. And if you could do that for me, I would greatly appreciate you. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.
Following Mr. Marcus Coleman, the last two speakers are Mr. Roy Frink and Ms. Avon Spence. Mr. Coleman.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, and others. Mayor Pro Tem, this is such an important piece of legislation. You would be joining the plethora, I believe it's 60+ cities across this nation that already have replaced Columbus Day with the indigenous people day. For some reason, the state of Georgia is behind the ball, but a lot of times we see that here, considering what type of state that we live in, where we have two Republican gubernatorial candidates who reminds you of how embarrassing this state can be and how backwards in time it can be. I just came here, sir and gentlemen, women and gentlemen, just to tell you a little bit, and I'm not preaching to the choir, but more so to the little ones that this will affect. Christopher Columbus was a rapist. Christopher Columbus was a butcher for Spain. Christopher Columbus was a scout for colonizers. This is factual. Christopher Columbus, of course, did not discover America. The city of South Fulton, in owning our blackness, but again, governing and welcoming all races, should be the beacon of telling the truth. Not even our brothers and sisters to the north in ATL have done what hopefully you all are about to do. I am all about this city making history. It would be glorious to get up in the morning and see the national headlines read, the city of South Fulton, the first city in the state of Georgia to recognize not just the indigenous people, but to recognize the truth, to speak on truth. So I know I come here and I'm, heated and stuff, because a lot of times these are heated issues. I'm a resident of this city, I'm a resident of this country, I'm a resident of this nation, I'm a resident of this globe. But to know that my city is on the cusp of voting yes, and hopefully it will be a successful vote, hopefully it will be unanimous, because you're looking beautiful with people of color, so it makes sense that we respect and show honor to the indigenous people, especially with the historical nature of the indigenous people here in the Wolf Creek, Campbell Creek area.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Zedwood, Council Member. My name is Roy Frank. I don't even know what district I'm in. I'm a member of First Missionary Baptist Church. We are residing now at 3725 Old Emmanuel Baptist Church. I just want to come here and let you know that we are on the corner there. And I just want to say thank you to Councilman Person Rosa Jackson, Khalid, and Mark Baker for holding your ground so that the word of God can be preached on that corner. We also bringing a youth program there for after-school children. So we're going to be productive. We need your help. We solicit your help. Can I depend upon you, Councilman? Can I?
That's my district.
That's your district? Okay, District 5. And my pastor is Bishop C.L. Carter. And we just want to say thank you. If anything you do for us, please do.
Thank you so much. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council. My name is Avon Spence, and I live in Town Creek off of Butler Road. I'm also one of the owners of Fulton Sanitation Services. We've been in business approximately 9 years, and I understand this has been an ongoing process for a while. You need to know that when the RFP first came out, and this is the second RFP that was to be voted on tonight, when it first came out, each and every person that represented one of the major haulers, I approached. And I asked to be put on the RFP as a small hauler. At that time, it was 130 points. And as a small minority hauler, out of 130 points, I was given 4 to 6 points. So it was no incentive for them to employ a small hauler such as myself. So that was taken back. That was taken back, and when that was taken back, it went down to 100 points. And out of 100 points, they gave 16 points. They gave 16 points. And I went to the pre-bid meetings. And at the pre-bid meetings, the question came up. Is it mandatory to use small minority haulers? Originally, everybody was going to put me on the RFP. And the question came up, and the answer came back, no, period. No other discussion, no other words, and oh. The people that was gonna put me on their RFPs that just came up here and told y'all, right, what they was able to do and how long they've been doing it, they called me and told me, we don't need you. We're not gonna use you. The only one that was inclined to put me on RFP, to call me and say, look, we're trying to keep you in business, was Advance. And I promise you, Advance did not send me up here, but they was the only ones that said, we will keep you and the people that work with you in business. The rest of them said, sorry, that they can handle everything, and they nationwide. I don't know how wide Advance is, but I know I'm local, and I know Waste Industries and Waste Management are nationwide, if not worldwide. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Clerk?
No further speakers.
Okay.
Your first agenda item, Mr. Mayor, members of council, is beginning on page 2 of today's agenda, rezonings, modifications, variances, and public hearings. The first item is a request for rezoning, application Z18-004 in District 1. This is a rezoning from mixed with conditions to C1 at 1180 Utoy Springs Road. Staff.
Right, staff.
Okay, for the sake of time, I'll go ahead and present. Greetings, Mayor and Council. The item before you is an application for a property located at 1180 Utoy Springs. The property, this request first was deferred on your June 26th council meeting. The applicant, Mr. Tom Daniels of RLA of Omni Consulting Services, is requesting to rezone property from mixed with conditions to C1. This property is located in Council District 1. So I'm sure your packets will identify property that's kind of identifying what the property currently looks like today. It's also giving you an illustration of the site plan to show how the property has an interest and exit on the property, which is something that the Planning Commission was asking for them to ensure that they include, which they did, of course. The proposed site plan has 2 vacant buildings on it, totaling at 1.02 acres. There are 2 curves, of course, as I just mentioned, has one-way entrance and a one-way exit. There are 36 proposed parking spaces, but they're only required to have 29. And this property will improve the existing sidewalks at the location. The property is currently zoned, which means that the property is currently zoned, which means that they may move forward with the development without there being any changes tonight. The request tonight came about because they were in the process There we go. Okay, so let me go backwards just a little bit. You're seeing the site plan here. You're seeing, excuse me, not site plan, the zoning map to show you what the mixed property is on the kind of yellowish property. You're seeing that it's surrounded by a majority commercial. The comprehensive plan identifies this area as regional live work. And here are the existing photos of the property, as I mentioned, to show you what's currently existing. The site plan, as I mentioned, there's an entrance and an exit that allows for a more fluent traffic flow, to allow for there to be an opportunity for there to not be any jams located along Utoy Springs. As I mentioned before, the property has 2 vacant buildings. It has has 2 curb cuts, one-way entrance and one-way exit. And again, the development will be improving on sidewalks. It's very important to note that this was once a larger development. You're seeing in yellow, it was once a portion of land that was annexed in 2016 with the city of Atlanta. This piece leaves a smaller piece that's left behind. This will allow for the property to have similar zonings because it's the only piece that's zoned mixed. And as I mentioned before, this property is already zoned, which means they may move forward regardless on tonight's decision. Okay, again, as I mentioned, the property is zoned C1 and C2, commercial use. Regional Live works with what the company plan identifies it, and it includes for there to be a commercial use. And this development will comply with the Cascade Overlay District regulations. Staff recommends approval of this request tonight. I've identified the conditions in your staff report. The Planning Commission recommended denial as they had concerns during their May 15th meeting in regards to traffic concerns. The applicant has taken it upon themselves to have their own traffic study done. They can present to that or speak to that tonight if you would like. The applicant is present.
Any questions for staff before I open the public comment?
So staff recommends approval with conditions based on comprehensive development plan and.
So in your staff report, you'll see that there are staff members that provide comments to these developments. Most of those are coming either from the engineer or something that's dealing with transportation. So of course, as you know, we have a transportation department that serves the city. They have reviewed it, as well as the city engineer and staff. So those conditions are based on that level of expertise.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. No more questions. I'll open up the public comment. All those who are in favor to my right, those did I need something else? Somebody look at me like a great. The applicant. The applicant come up and make a presentation.
Good evening. My name is Harold Buckley. I'm with Wilson, Brock, and Irby, 2849 Jesus Ferry Road in Atlanta. I'm here before you on behalf of the applicant. In preparing for this presentation, I was reminded of a lesson I received from my 6th grade English teacher when she was teaching us how to write essays. She said, when you write an essay, you need to tell them what you're going to tell them, which is your introduction. And then she said, tell them, which is the body of your essay. And then she said, tell them what you told them, which is your conclusion. So I'm going to follow that advice tonight. First, I'm going to tell you what we're going to tell you and what the evidence is going to tell you. And what it's going to tell you is that this property currently has no economic value because it is developed with obsolete buildings and it is burdened with obsolete and inappropriate zoning. So that's the first thing. And then the second thing we're going to show you is that the rezoning request that we have presented is consistent with the comprehensive plan. It eliminates inappropriate spot zoning and it's consistent with the prevailing development patterns in that area. I have offered up 3 documents in a plastic sleeve like this. There's an aerial photo that shows you where the property is. There is a copy of the zoning map from the city, and then there is also a site plan, the current site plan. This property is located between the Shell station at the corner of Utoy Springs Road and Cascade Road on one side. And then on the other side, you have the Utoy Springs apartments. The Shell station is already zoned C1, as is the portion of the apartment site that abuts our property. So we've got C1 on both sides. And we back up to the Cascade Road driving range, which is in the city of Atlanta. The property across the street from us is developed with a Starbucks on the corner. It also has a McDonald's and an Applebee's and a few other retail uses on that property. As you have heard, this property is developed with 2 existing buildings. One is a 1,500 square foot retail building that was formerly the site of a dry cleaners, and then there is an almost 10,000 square foot office warehouse building. Back in 2009, when this was under Fulton County jurisdiction, the county rezoned the property to the MIX zoning category, along with the driving range property that is behind it. So under that 2009 zoning, this property and the driving range were supposed to be developed with a unified, single, mixed-use development. Then, a few years later in 2016, the rest of that site was annexed into the city of Atlanta, and it was zoned to a different zoning category. So now you've got two pieces of property that are in two different jurisdictions. They're owned by two different parties, and they're under two different zonings. So as a result of that city action, the annexation and the rezoning, it is no longer possible to pursue that unified development. We just have our 1 acre that we've been left with. So as you heard in the staff presentation, the mixed zoning that is governing this property is obsolete because you cannot accomplish the development that was approved in that action. Furthermore, it is the only parcel anywhere near here that the city has that is zoned MIX. All the surrounding area is either C1, C2, or some form of residential zoning. In addition, the buildings that are on the property are obsolete. I mean, the property is being substantially underutilized right now, and it has been for some time. That fact, plus the staff's analysis, shows that the existing buildings are not feasible for redevelopment and reuse as they are. So because of those facts, we are faced with a couple of challenges at the same time. Number one, we've got existing buildings that are obsolete and we can't build, and we've got a zoning that won't allow us to move forward. And the reason I say that it won't allow us to move forward is this. You have heard that, and I've seen materials in the file that say this property is zoned MIX. The property owner can move forward and develop it under the current zoning. As an academic exercise, that is possible, but as a practical matter, given the nature of the property, it is impossible to develop this property under the current zoning. And the reason for that is in the zoning ordinance in section 8.2.2. And what it says is the mixed district mandates a residential component of single-family dwellings, duplexes, triplexes, quadruplexes, townhomes, multifamily dwellings, or any combination thereof, along with at least two of the following: commercial, office, or institutional uses. What that means is we can't put this restaurant or any other restaurant on this property by itself because we are mandated to have at least 3 independent uses under our mixed-use zoning. So we could have a restaurant, but then we would have to have an office component, and we would have to have residential because no matter what your other 2 uses are, you're required to have residential. This property is not nearly big enough to put 3 different independent uses on, plus their parking, plus the setbacks, plus the landscape strips, and all the other development standards that would apply. So this property under this zoning has no use and no redevelopment prospect. In addition to that, so you've got a piece of property that has no economic use. And then in the staff's analysis, and if you review the documents, the original documents yourself, you'll see that our requested C1 zoning is consistent with the comprehensive plan because that is one of the compatible zoning categories with our land use designation. And you will also notice that it is consistent with the surrounding area because everything that we touch in the city of South Fulton is C1. Everything across the street from us is either C1 or C2. And we're part of a really big commercial node right here at Cascade and 285. So we are consistent with the prevailing platting patterns. When we came here last month, we asked for additional time for a traffic study, and we did get that traffic study done. And the traffic study showed a couple of things. First, our expectation based on GPS Hospitality's past experience is that a substantial proportion of their business will come from drive-by traffic, people already in the area. The traffic study says that number will be 50%. So half the people who will patronize this restaurant are already driving through this community. So once you factor out that traffic, because those cars will be there whether we're there or not, what you're looking at is new trips in the amount of 30 new cars in the morning during peak hours. And so peak rush hour is actually 2 hours. So that works out to an average of 15 cars an hour. And in the afternoon, in terms of new trips generated by our development, you're talking about 24 vehicles or 12 per hour in that 2-hour period. So based on all of those things, we ask for you to approve our rezoning, and I will reserve the rest of my time for rebuttal.
Now I'd like to open up the public comments, I think. Is anybody for or against? Or get my left, I'm against, get my right, come on out.
No, I'm against.
Sit on this side. Come on out, you can go right there to the middle.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council. I'm in District 1. My name is Ken Murray, and I am CEO and partner at Murray Brothers Funeral Home. And I noticed on the site map it was conveniently left off. It's one of the largest buildings on Utoy Springs. I noticed on the site, if you pull up number 3, it was conveniently left off. It occupies one of the largest spaces on Utoy Springs. But nevertheless, we purchased the building in 1990. I have physically been going to this building for 28 years. I work every day. Going on 80 years of old age, but I work every day. From my window, I have watched the traffic grow. I watched the Kroger, we welcomed it. The regional library, we welcomed it. The Walgreens, the Home Depot, we welcomed it all. I love Burger King, hamburgers, but I hate traffic. The traffic at Murray Brothers, we started out in 1990 with 54 cases. We're now approaching 900 cases per year. One of the selling points that we have is our chapel. It's one of the largest chapels of any funeral home in the city of Atlanta. We have at least 4 funerals per day. Each one of those funerals has a cortege. The cortege comes right in front of the proposed site. That's where the hearse pauses. I can see a chaotic traffic jam with traffic coming off of, and with the paving of Utoy Springs, they're coming down the hill 40 and 50 miles per hour. We had a police escort that was killed. It's documented on Utoy Springs. The traffic studies did not show this. It did not show the snowbirds who come off of 85 heading to Tampa, Florida with their campers and their small dogs. It did not show the people who come in beyond the people who live in the community. The McDonald's is presently one of the busiest McDonald's there is. With the new Burger King, it will even be busy on that intersection. The traffic study did not show the trash. Every day I have a person who polices our site just to get rid of the trash. Now, since the homeless shelter has closed on Pine and Peachtree, many of the homeless have found their way out Cascade Road, and in the Utoy Springs Park, where's Vanjie? Vanjie helped save it. They're hanging out on the curb. They're now in the line at McDonald's begging for money. I see this happening at the Burger King also.
I'm very reserve some of your time for other people.
Okay. I oppose the Burger King for the traffic reasons that have been stated, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Hi, my name is Kelly Ross. I'm District 6.
As a real estate professional, I do agree with, because I frequent that Starbucks, it's one of my remote offices. So I frequent that area a lot, a few times a week. So I do agree from a real estate standpoint that it shouldn't be mixed use. It doesn't make sense for the area. I am in agreement of it being zoned commercial, but I am not okay with the Burger King. I do believe it needs to be something that is of low volume, but it does make sense to get it out of a mixed-use zoning to a commercial zoning, just so that it will complete that area. Because I always wonder, like, what are those two buildings even there for? You know, and because I never see any really like activity going on, but it would make sense if it could be constructed into something that fits, like where the Starbucks Plaza is and whatnot, so that it is more cohesive, because it is just kind of an eyesore for the area. But I do not agree with the Burger King. If they could be of a business of a lower volume, it makes sense, because coming in and out of that area on that side of the street is a bit hectic, especially the Shell station. You see almost a few accidents, people trying to turn as the traffic is coming, and but I do agree that it should be a commercial, just to help make that area, that block, more cohesive. But a Burger King, no.
Okay, Clay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. My name is Gwendolyn Cummings, and I live in District 1 at 3710 Village Drive. I oppose the changing of the zoning, and I definitely oppose Burger King, period. I'm not a proponent of Burger King in the neighborhood, out of the neighborhood, in place. It's okay for them to go someplace else. I've already told them I don't. When we met with them, I told them that I don't utilize Burger King because I don't utilize McDonald's either. First of all, Utoy Springs is a small street, a short street. You have apartments right there, you have the funeral home, and you have the service station. If you try to turn off of Cascade onto Utoy between 4:30 and 7 o'clock, an accident waiting to happen. If you put Burger King there, you're gonna have all that traffic, and when you turn off, you're gonna be standing with your car half out into Cascade, so there you go without a car, and somebody's going to be hurt. So the traffic is going to have an adverse effect on the traffic. Now, when we spoke to them in May, they said that it was going to be a 24-hour operation. The first thing I asked them when we met in June was, did they do a traffic study? They told us that no, they did not do a traffic study, that they had looked at the reports before and that was no need to do it. But then you come back here in June and you say we need to do a traffic study. And I travel that road frequently, and I haven't seen anything that looked like anybody doing a traffic study, so I guess they did it all remotely. The other thing is, that neighborhood has an apartment there. It's going to have an adverse effect on the people that live there. Now, they said it's going to be a 24-hour operation. McDonald's is 24 hours, but McDonald's is not next to where people live. Those apartments have been there since before I moved into the area. And I've lived in that area for almost 50 years. People have not moved out of those apartments like you see. You don't go down the street and see the furniture sitting out on the street or somebody being set out. Some of those people have lived there for years. Now, I don't know about you, but I would not want to come home from a job, having worked all day, and try to sleep. And the teenagers come in there, especially after a football game, and they are going to be loud, noise with their phones, their radios up. And how do you expect people to live in a situation like that? They need to get that rest. So that's not going to provide a good quality of living for anybody in that area. And the other part is, right behind that, where they're trying to build, it floods. If they do any destruction to that area, there's gonna be water on Utoy. It's already on Cascade. Mayor knows, he's been through there, couldn't get through there. You can't drive through there if there's heavy rain. So if they do any construction to that, that's going to cause more rain and more water on Utoy, on the people that live there. So I suggest that if they really want to build a Burger King, and they don't want to do it in the mixed use, there's Campbellton Road at 285 and not 285, but at Camp Creek. There's 285 at Cascade, there's property there. And there's property on Fulton Industrial. We're trying to build that up. So they can go there and sure that they will have lots of business because of all the truck drivers and the people that are traveling through there. So I request that you deny this. It has been denied, and I'd like for it to stay denied so we can have some peace in where we live. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we had about 19 seconds left for those ones. At this time, how many minutes do we have for the other?
3 minutes and 15 seconds.
You have 3 minutes, 15 seconds for your rebuttal.
Thank you. It is correct that when we went to the Planning Commission, we did not have a traffic study, but we heard the concerns about that at that meeting, and in response to those comments, we commissioned a traffic study, and we've submitted it to the city. The traffic study recommends a couple of public road improvements to Utoy Springs Road that you can see in the site plan that I gave you. The first improvement is a dedicated left turn into this property from Utoy Springs Road, and then going the opposite direction, there's a deceleration lane so that no matter which way you come at the site from, you can pull out of moving traffic in order to make your turn. In terms of safety, right now, if there's a concern about people doing things at that property late at night, it's much more likely to happen now because there's nobody there. Whereas if there was an operating business, it would be much harder for bad actors to go on this property and do things that we don't want them doing in this community. And then the third thing about the flooding, we're showing the flood area on our site plan. We are not going to disturb it. And we are going to follow the city's codes when it comes to stormwater detention and release. So to the extent that there is stormwater coming off of this property now, given modern code standards, there will be less water coming off if it's redeveloped than there is now, because this development has been there for so long. And then the last thing I just want to bring to your attention is just the equities of the situation. As I said before, we are the only property anywhere near this location that the city of South Fulton requires to have 3 different independent uses on the property. Everybody else has got C1 or C2 if they're commercial. They can just do retail if they want, or they can just do restaurant if they want. We are being held to a very different standard, and that very different standard has deprived us of any use of this property. How would you feel if that was you and your property, and you were being held to a standard that was so much higher than everybody else around you? All we're asking for is relief, and the relief we're asking for is consistent not only with the zoning ordinance and the approval standards, but it is consistent with your own published land use policies as codified in your comprehensive plan. And for all of those reasons, we ask you to approve this application.
Okay. This time I want to close the public comment. Anybody have any comments? No, I have not.
Yes.
Go ahead.
So thank you for your presentations, and I just, my comment is going to be limited, and I'm going to say that we can't deny a zoning because we don't want a specific company to come. This is about land use, and we have to make a decision based on law and policies and staff recommendations. Because if we make decisions on emotion, that opens our city up to litigation. And so this zoning is restricted for mixed use, correct? And we can't put a mixed use development there at this time?
The property is rather small, so it does make it difficult for that. But yes, it does make it rather difficult to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Councilwoman Dunn.
Director Reed, at the May 15th meeting, the Planning Commission made a recommendation for denial. Do you have the reasons why? I didn't see that in the packet.
Well, correct. One of the main concerns they had was based on traffic, which is why the owner went back and did a review and did a traffic study, because there were concerns regarding the impact that it would put on the roads.
Do you have a copy of that? Are we able to see that disclosure for the traffic studies?
The applicant provided that to us earlier this week, but it was not in your package because we turned the package into you a bit earlier than that. So no, we have it in our office, yes, but he has that file.
Ms. Gilliard, go ahead.
Under the environmental section, it states that the property is near residential uses. The developer shall restrict hours of operation to the extent of what already exists in the area. So does that mean that Burger King would be operating 24 hours a day or close it? What would be their operating hours?
So I do not have that information before me as far as their operating hours. That is not something that I have in the packet. That would be something that the applicant would need to speak on.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't want to be rude and push her off the mic.
So what will the operating hours be?
I'm going to ask Todd Jackson from GPS Hospitality to come up because he can speak to that much more cogently than I can.
Very quick.
Hello, Todd Jackson with GPS Hospitality, address 2100 River Edge Parkway, Suite 850, Atlanta. The operating hours would be from 6 a.m. until midnight on Monday, Sunday through Thursday, and we would probably close the dining room at midnight and then operate the drive-through for an additional 2 hours till 2 a.m. It is not a 24-hour operation.
Thank you.
Ms. Willis, and then I will, and then we'll,
Yeah.
Go ahead, Ms. Willis.
Ms. Reed, so although you did not provide the traffic study, I understand the packet went out. These are the recommendations that the traffic study yielded, correct? Tile and conceptual site plan, receipt. These are the recommendations.
So that recommendation was based on the site plan that was provided in the packet. Again, the engineer and transportation department saw the site plan and the application. So those recommendations were rendered based on those files.
So did someone come up and give recommendations from the traffic study?
Yes, council member, I did. The traffic engineers recommended 3 improvements that we are incorporating into our development. The first recommendation was to install a left turn only lane on Utoy Springs Road that will allow people coming onto the site to pull out of moving traffic.
Okay.
And then coming the other way, the engineers recommended a deceleration lane so that people coming the opposite direction, making a right-hand turn, can also pull out of the flow of traffic and make that right turn into the property. And then the third recommendation was signage for people leaving the property. A stop sign for people leaving the property, and also signage advising people that one driveway is exit only and one driveway is entrance only. So those are improvements that we would be making. Another improvement on the environmental front that we're making is the dry cleaner that was on that property contaminated the property. So it is now on the state registry for polluted sites. And so as part of our redevelopment plan, we would be removing that pollution from the property.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'm glad you said that because I was coming with that. Because I know that dry cleaning was there and I know that that area is contaminated. And I hope that we consider that, Ms. Reed, as a part of what they're going to do. Is that included?
Well, you're talking about the.
Excuse me, what is it?
You're asking what.
Come back to the microphone.
I'm asking
Is a remediation program planned for the contamination a part of what they're giving us?
I don't know. I don't have that information before me to state that yes or no with certainty. But I can review that and come back.
But it's gotta be. You gotta have a remediation plan, it's gotta be. I mean, before I even consider something like this. If nobody know that place, that corner over there, and I do. And let me say something, let me take you from the top. Coming out 285, onto Cascade Road on the right-hand turn. You have something what we call stacking. Stacking occurs when you have a red light, when the traffic backs up to the highway. And the other thing that causes that stacking is that everybody's also trying to make a right-hand turn into Walmart. The other issue I have, the only solution to something like this on that corner is that you realign Utoy Springs Road with Research Drive. Now, those of you who remember the Walmart, that was one of the things that we said in the Walmart as a condition, that you realign Utoy Springs with Research Road. Take that into consideration. Let me get another little tidbit. Right at Utoy Springs and Cascade, there are more U-turns done there than in America. And if you don't believe me, I'll call the police in here. There's more U-turns. And some people overcompensate. Y'all know who live there. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Some people overcompensate even for the U-turns and causes another problem. All right? The other thing, there is something they call a road that you're not talking about here that runs behind Applebee's and it ain't a road. It's an alley. But people come down there. Oh, I've been doing this for years, man. People come down there and you would think it's a road. Now I want you to hear all this in one conglomeration here. You got traffic doing everything. And I know you say that you've done your study and these are cars that's going to pass that site every day, right? But the difference is that they don't stop today. You will make them stop. And when you make them stop, that changed the whole dynamics of what's happening on that corner. Mr. Murray and them been there for 100 years. I'm glad to see him here because he's right. Mr. Barry folk left and right over there. And you go through there, these funerals are big. You know, they're big. And he has the right to conduct that business in a manner that he's always conducted that business. The Murray brothers are a staple in our community. Yes, they are. And I would never want to pose anything. But the biggest thing here too is in saying all of that, and I'm talking about land use. You know, I'm Burger King, Queen King, I don't care. But I'm talking about just from the sole perspective of land use. To me, it's difficult. Yes, there is a floodplain behind it. And I remember when it was 6 foot of water. Some of you all, y'all know what I'm saying, it was 6 foot of water. We're granted, she knows. It was 6 foot of water behind that flood. And that was, is it a 100-year floodplain, staff? That's what it is? 100-year floodplain back there, but you know, sometimes it messed up before the 100 years get there. I just think that in terms of actually land use and the traffic. I mean, you can do a traffic study, but if you don't go by there every day, Ms. Gilliard, if you don't come on Cascade or Cascade Road and just see things, I mean, the traffic study look good. But in reality, that ain't the way it goes. All right? And to be 24 hours on certain days, not 24 hours, but 2 o'clock in the morning, I think I'm having some problem with this, but for staff, I don't think that they should not even be in consideration of this with the knowing that you had an environmental issue and did not submit a plan to remediate that environmental issue. But I'm glad you came up and said it. Did you testify to it? I was gonna tell you, you hadn't got up there. And you don't have I have to see a remediation plan for that environmental issue that we have there. So all those things I'm telling you don't make a good sweet potato pie. You know, and so I just want to put that out there, and have nothing, once again, nothing to do with I go to Burger King and get 2 for $6. Has nothing to do with Burger King. This is all about land use, and the most important thing right now, I don't know how you're going to remediate this thing, but I would rather see a remediation plan, and staff, you would have to go to the state or whatever, to even find if that remediation plan is adequate for what we're doing. All right? Okay, sorry. Sure, did you?
I've listened to what everybody said. I think the remediation plan is definitely in order, and to try to get the approval from the state to make sure it's adequate. As people who are familiar with the Cascade Recorder, we all know that those sites have been environmentally impacted, and I am also concerned about the residential. So this time I'm going to recommend, I make a motion to deny Z18004.
Second. Been properly moved to second. Any discussion? All those in favor? That motion for denial passed. The motion for denial passed. Next.
The next item is a request for rezoning Z18-006 in District 4. Yeah.
Okay, the item before you is a request to rezone property located at Forest Creek Renaissance subdivision. The application was deferred June 26, 2018 at your last council meeting. The applicant, Neil Coble of Forest Creek Renaissance LLC, is requesting to rezone the property from R3 to R5A, single-family residential. The property is located in Council District 4. As you can see, the property is zoned R3 with surrounding properties within the city of South Fulton as residential or mixed use. You will see that the city of Union City also has similar zonings of R1 and TCMU, which is also residential and mixed use. There are 3 nearby schools located here: Renaissance Elementary, Renaissance Middle, and Langston Hughes High School. You're seeing a site plan of what the proposed development would look like should it be developed. It's very important to note this scale here. I want to identify that the R3 is the O2 zoning and the R5A is what they're proposing here in 2018. If you're looking at the heated floor area, the minimum they're requesting today to increase it from 1,400 square feet to 1,800 square feet. The R5A only requires 850 square feet. They're requesting to double that. So they're asking to have larger homes here. The common area is required to have 21% of green space. They're requesting to have 25 instead. The 2006 case does not require an amenity area, but the development is requesting to have a amenity area added to the site plan. I've mentioned pretty much everything here with the exception of the goals of South Fulton Parkway transitional and regional live work, future land use, all aligned within the comprehensive plan here. as mentioned, the comprehensive plan has a regional live work in South Fulton Parkway transitional. The property is split, as you can see, to allow for there to be I believe that is the regional live work piece that's lower to the south of the property. Current photo of the site. It has been abandoned and left vacant. This is an area that shows where there is a unpaved road. Of course, as you're seeing in your conditions soon to be spoken of, they will be required to pave that road. This is a elevation of the proposed homes for that subdivision. And there's 95 total lots for the single-family homes, minimum square feet of 1,800. The staff is recommending within those conditions, of course, attach that March 27, 2018 site plan. And then there's an amenity area, of course, that's going to be placed there, a 100-foot green belt along Jones Road and a 50-foot along the remainder of the perimeter. That does allow for there to be some greenery / buffers there. There's a minimum of 25-foot common area green space, and then there's going to also be a requirement to allow for there to be 2 lanes and sidewalks from the elementary school to extend the property frontage along Jones Road. And then add a right-hand lane, deceleration lane, into the main entrance. At the Planning Commission of May 15th, approval per staff recommendation of conditions. That concludes my report.
Okay, any questions? Any questions from staff?
Can you go
Mr.
back to
Baker?
the first slide of it? To where it showed the gravel road?
Okay.
Okay, all right. Belton?
Yes, they are here.
They're here? Okay.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and other members of the council. My name is Neil Coble with Forest Creek Renaissance. My address is 118 Parkway Drive, McDonough, Georgia. Just like to point out a few things this original zoning was done back in 2002, and it is set vacant since they started developing it shortly thereafter. With the smaller house plans, the 1,400 square foot minimum that was granted in 2002, along with the larger estate lots, since then the schools have been built around it. It immediately backs up to a stadium there, which is limiting the economic use. I'd also like to just reiterate that the zoning of R5A that I'm asking for does comply with the comprehensive plan that was adopted after the original 2002 zoning. In addition, I've agreed to meet all of the conditions of the Cedar Grove overlay, and we've met multiple times with the Cedar Grove community and come to agreement with them for the development of the property. And I've got a copy of that email that was sent to me today that I'd like to enter into the record, if I can, please.
Yes.
In addition, I have a couple of letters here. I've reached out to the immediate property owners, one being the McClure family, excuse me, and they wrote a letter for you this evening I'd like to read. It says, I am writing in support of the application for the rezoning submitted by Forest Creek Renaissance on behalf of Charles H. McClure Estate. We are the owners of the 202 acres located directly across from the proposed development. As you are aware, there's been substantial commercial development and future development in the area, especially along South Fulton Parkway, which has increased the need for residential development to support the growing workforce. The proposed site plan for this development incorporates larger homes and more green space, which we feel will enrich the community. We urge the City of South Fulton to approve the application for rezoning submitted by Forest Creek Renaissance. The future development of this area will be beneficial to the overall growth and prosperity of the City of South Fulton. Then my other neighbor there to the south of me is the Jones Estate. This is a letter drafted by Mr. Cliff Jones. It Says, "We are the owners of the 117 acres on Jones Road, just south of the proposed development by Forest Creek Renaissance. We are in the city of South Fulton, and we are in favor of the rezoning of this property because of the larger homes and more green space that is provided for the development with the new site plan." Also like to enter those into the record, please. And finally, a couple of things I'd like to point out about our agreement with the Cedar Grove community is that we have agreed to, there's multiple points in here, but two just to highlight, and we can discuss any that need to be discussed further. But that we've agreed to increase the buffer along Jones Road, which in the staff report was 100 feet. We agreed to another 25 feet for a total of 125 feet with the community. The others, remaining sides of the development, the staff recommended 50 feet. We've agreed to increase those to 80 feet. And then another important point that I'd like to bring up is the fact that they've asked for the homes to be constructed with full masonry fronts, and we've agreed to do that as well. Thank you for hearing me this evening, and I ask for your approval of this rezoning. Thank you.
Is there anybody speaking? Is there anyone speaking against this development? You want to be speaking against it, or?
I'm for it, but it's something
Well, come on, you're speaking for it, come on.
Okay.
See what you got to say.
Okay. My name is Angela Brown, and I'm in District 1, but I work in District 4. I'm a teacher at Renaissance Middle School. So my concern would be that I watch students over there walking up and down that area all the time, and it concerns me that their safety is in jeopardy. And they leave from Langston Hughes, they walk from Renaissance Middle School. I don't see too many elementary students, but I didn't hear anything about sidewalks. So I just wanted to know, is that going to be a part of the plan when you create all these new residential homes? And biking?
It's required.
Okay.
It's required. Anyone else? Got someone over here? Four, you four?
Yeah.
Go ahead, I've seen it again here.
My name is Elise Fisher. I represent Cedar Grove Community Association, and I live at 4852 Lockerbie Drive in Fairburn. Neil just gave you a copy of the agreement that we agreed to. It's a 34-point list. I'd also just like to take a moment to thank Neil. He came to us several times after he submitted the application, and he put forth great effort to align with the character and intent of our existing community. He talked about the wider green belt. He talked about the 30% green space. Overall, given the changes that are made, again, it's a 34-point list that he's agreed to. I think it'll make a nice subdivision, and it'll be something that we're proud of, I think.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else before I close the public hearing? You all like to say anything, you got 4 minutes. You don't have to take them. Okay, at this time, I'll close the whole public comment session. Staff, would you come back up for a minute? Where is it? Put on the site now. Put on the site plan for me. Okay, right there. Where, down low to my right, is that the entrance?
Down where you see Jones Road is identified.
I can't tell. I mean, it is. John Road. That's what we are getting old. And the other one is also an entrance, right?
That's correct.
There's 2 entrances. Are we applying staggered setbacks?
That is something that you can require as a condition. You do have that.
Well, I'll yield to the district person, but I just think that staggered setbacks always do good. The other thing, I'll give you back in a minute. Where is the football field? Is it back to the left?
I think that property falls to the rear of that property. The schools are located to the far rear of that property.
How far is you may be able to help me, how far is it from the athletic field to the property line?
Can you bring that aerial? There was an aerial, I thought that was.
That may help me,
Yes, sir. There's a practice field that is in between us and the stadium, and I believe it's about 1,000 feet from the property line. That's the perimeter of the property line, not the building line, but the property line over to the stadium. There's the band and the practice field for the football is in between us there, and then there's a softball field immediately to our back property line, and then there's a baseball field on the other side of that.
How is that buffer from your property line?
So on that back buffer is where we have our largest amount of green space. There's a stream that's on part of that back line, and so that's protected, of course, by the city's ordinance, state ordinance, et cetera. And then that part of the road there that you see that is going towards the school.
Yeah.
There in the existing site plan right now, there's houses all the way up to that, and we have abandoned that to bring it away from the school facility.
You got 95 units.
Yes, sir.
Right?
Yes, sir.
No amenity package, right?
We are proposing amenity. Our agreement is a volleyball court, a pavilion, commercial style, metal pavilion, not just a wood one, and then a commercial style playground. That was the agreement with the community.
That's real key. I think that volleyball coach said.
Yes, sir.
One of the things, yeah, I did. One of the things I do feel, Ms. Gilliard, when you're talking, I think you got excellent floor space and things of that nature. I would like to see the staggered setback, but I gotta say that, you know, we're gonna be paying a lot of money for houses in the future. And I think that we need to look at adequate amenity packages for those particular facilities, because we complain now that we don't have swimming pools in the city, and we don't have adequate basketball courts and stuff of that nature. So as we go forward, maybe nothing we can do with this one, but I just think staff, one of the questions should be asked with any of them is, what is your amenity package? And I appreciate the volleyball court and the team group, whatever you say.
Thanks.
But you know, yeah, okay, but you know, just saying that I think we need to consider that as we go forward. Go ahead, Mr. Gilliard.
Before I make the motion, I'd like to go back to the site plan. Because when I looked at the site plan, I originally said, these look like townhomes because it looks like they're right next to each other. There's no space in between, and they don't look staggered. And I was told that they were staggered. So if it's staggered, and I'm sure the community probably focused on that as well. So if it's staggered, I'm good. The community is good. I'm fine. So now I can make a motion. Can I make the motion?
Yes, ma'am, you can.
I would like a motion that we approve. Go back to the number or whatever it is. Z18006.
Based on that recommendation.
Based on staff recommendation.
Second.
Properly moved to second. Discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor? That passes.
And I would like to thank Cedar Grove for an excellent job.
Excellent. I got staff for this job.
The next item is a request for modification M18-003. Director Reed.
Thank you, sir. M18003 is a modification request. Property located at Renaissance and South Park subdivision, Rockland Homes is requesting to modify case number Z02124. The purpose of this request is to complete an existing subdivision in Council District 7. The property is currently zoned mixed use with surrounding zones, might I add, that are also mixed as well as apartments within our city limits. And then surrounding properties of Fairburn has either commercial or industrial. So the proposal mirrors an original approved site plan from Z02124 or 124. So you'll see that in 2010, the applicant or the property owners at that time requested to 26 townhomes with 20 single-family lots. And in 2011, they requested to replace 207 townhomes with 302 multifamily units. You'll see that they're actually requesting to go back to their original plan. So everything in red, they're asking to go back to whatever was the original, and in blue the same. So you'll see that they're asking to go back to their original plan of Z02124. Here's a site plan to show you where those changes will be. The yellow, of course, will be 24 townhomes, and then the blue, of course, will be 207 townhomes, and the green will be 2 townhomes, making the entire subdivision a townhome subdivision. So here's a difference between the properties. Of course, you're going to see that the existing conditions has 908 townhomes with 20 single-family lots. You'll see here they're proposing to have 1,125 townhomes with no single-family homes. The homes are rather small, of course, with the current zoning conditions, but they're asking to have it 1,100 square feet now as a minimum. Okay, so the 2035 comprehensive plan identifies this property as a suburban 2 neighborhood. Future land use identifies this area to have a higher density for residential, transitional density from less intense uses near rural areas. The comp plan classifies townhomes as a higher density residential product, and proposal improves and aligns with the comprehensive plan. This is the main entrance off of Oakley Industrial Boulevard. And you're seeing here where townhomes will be replaced. If you were to approve that, meaning it will X out the single family lots. And then here you'll see where they're removing the apartments and asking whether you replace with townhomes. As you can see, currently townhomes are there now. This is the entrance along Spence Road where the townhomes will replace the apartments. So there's nothing there as of now. These roads have been closed off. I'm sure you've seen it. And then here's the signs, of course, at the site identifying the modifications. Staff is recommending your approval of this change tonight.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor and Council, if I could, we, at the request of Councilman Baker, we had dialogue and follow-up session with homeowners. And unfortunately, given the scheduling complexities of the parties getting together, that meeting was not held until Friday. And so I have got here a copy for you all of the updated public participation report, and I'll very quickly go over with you the new updates and the new agreements that the applicant and the advisory board from the Homeowners Association have been able to work through, if that's all right to submit.
That's all right. Councilman Baker, you have discussed with the...
I have it. They're clear. I've had several conversations. I'm aware of the meeting on Friday, and there may be possibly 2 individuals who couldn't come, but I believe that they're board.
Pete, I guess what I want to hear is there anything you added that made a difference or changed considerably?
Well, there were questions that were coming from the community, and we want to be able to sit down and go through and give comfort and commitment to issues that were brought up. If you would like, I can quickly highlight those for you, or Councilman Baker has been provided with a copy of what it is that I submitted to staff yesterday.
Mr. Baker, is there any substantive changes?
I think 2 members of the community just want to say something for the record in reference to their discussion.
Not a problem. Okay, Pete, I'll allow, they're for the zoning. I'll allow the community to come up and speak forward.
Okay.
All right, here they come.
Good evening, Councilman and Mr. Mayor. We did meet with the developer on Friday, And we, as a board, advisory board, we recognize that this is a modification, not the original planning. So we're not opposing what they want to do. The only thing that we wanted to project is we had communication with them, and most of what was said was verbal, so we don't really have it in writing, which we would like to have. But what we talked about and what they agreed that they would do is satisfactory to the advisory board. So,
So you're all right with this document?
right. Well, I haven't seen it.
Getting problematic now. You have not seen the document?
No, I have not.
That's why I kept asking, this is the second document, is there any substantial changes in the document?
Go to your last 2 pages.
Okay, you can peruse that, young ma'am, you gonna come up and, have you seen the document?
Greetings. No, I have not. And I actually was hoping that he would have an opportunity to share the things that he had agreed to with us prior to our having some dialogue with you all. We did not oppose, after having a conversation with Tim and a couple of the other members. However, we do not have anything in writing which suggests the things that we agreed to. And so we certainly would like to see that. We are 100% opposed to an apartment community versus a townhome community. I am personally not happy with the size of the new units. However, I have a 2,000 square unit place, so it doesn't necessarily affect me, but future homeowners and the longevity of our complex and so on and so forth. But I certainly would like to hear what they have to say, that they gleaned from our conversation on Friday, to see where we go from there.
Okay, yes ma'am.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I was not in attendance of that meeting, but I did have some notes that were sent over to me. Oh, I'm sorry. Can you guys hear me now? Okay. I know that there were, in the discussion, that there were some issues, not just administrative, but also physical concerns. We are, as Ms. Betty said, in opposition of an apartment complex, but we have not actually had a chance to actually meet with our board. Up until, honestly, last year, I moved into the community in 2010. Since that time, we've only had regular meetings. We've had 3 up to this point, 1 last year, 1 this year. During that time, we requested for a reserve study to be done. Actually, it was last year we requested it, and it was not done until after we had the meeting this year. And from what I understand, that there is a draft that was sent over to the management company that has not been shared with the advisory board or the residents as of yet. So before doing anything else in the community, it would really kind of behoove to know what's in that report before going forward and continuing developing. Some other issues that I just want to go on record to say real quick. We have some concerns as far as like parking solutions, because it is a townhome community. We are on top of each other and we have many parking issues. We would like to have longer driveways, possibly additional parking and green spaces, some vehicle decals, hiring security. There have been people that have been voicing issues with construction hours and the noise. We've also addressed street lighting. We need LED lighting. Our community is very dark, and it's actually conducive to a lot of criminal activity that's been going on lately. We need signage for one-way streets because people are going the wrong way on our streets. As the community grows right now, our trash compactors, we only have 2. There are issues with the trash in the community and where there's the newer ones, when they add them in, where they're going to be put. Amenity-wise, we do need a playground. We have tennis courts, we have a little bit of green space, but we also have children and families. Our children don't have anywhere to play other than like one small patch of green area. items that I believe were discussed in the meeting Friday that were kind of left in the air. We need a website for our own community. That is supposedly under consideration. We do not have access to our financials. They were denied, and this is to include bank statements, delinquency reports, litigation, collections, breakdowns, closing reports, just to even welcome people into our community. Just invoices, the ability to have input in bids for services that are performed in our neighborhood. And lastly, just governing in general as far as the advisory board and the builder and CAM, just the having a process or implementing a violation appeals process for residents. Just when they're sending out violation letters or there are issues between the residents and the actual management company, just having some type of appeal process or grievance process. So that is all. Oh, I'm sorry, my name is Michelle Mazik. I live on Bucknell Terrace in Fairbrooke. I believe, is that District 7? Yep.
Michelle, thank you. Pete, does this document address some of the things? And some of my colleagues are saying it addresses most of the things.
No, it doesn't. We discussed feasibility of them addressing our parking concerns.
Addressing your what concerns?
Parking concerns. And the thing that we talked about was removing one of the two tennis courts to use one of two tennis courts for parking. We also discussed the feasibility of them. We had sidewalk issues, where the sidewalks are being depressed and they're in need of repair, and we discussed that with them. So those two items are not mentioned here. And we also discussed incorporating a children's park so that kids can have a place to go play. So those things are not mentioned here, and they were going to study the feasibility of doing that for us. So,
okay. Pete, you want to come up and some of my colleagues are saying that a lot of stuff is being addressed in your document. And,
if I could quickly go through, I originally zoned the property for Jay Knight, and most of the product that he put in had one-car garages, so you had capacity for one car in the garage and one car in the driveway. And that was understandably causing a big issue and big concern for folks that would like to be able to have a party, for example. It also then came to our attention that with those units that had a one-car garage, that a lot of folks were using the one-car garage as storage units. And so what we talked about, the product that Tim Jenkins, the applicant, is putting forward as two-car garages and stacking for two cars. To come up with a modification and amendment to the homeowners association to the declaration that would, if the homeowners association sees fit to do it, to have a restriction against those one-car garage units being used for storage. The other thing that was spoken about was the ability to be able to have passes if people are going to try and have parties, to be able to have passes on a given night to be able to park on the streets, because there's a restriction against parking on the streets. You have to park either in your garage or you have to park on the driveway. And so that was also an alternative that was spoken about. Community website was raised. That is in the throes of being done and should be up and operative within the next couple of months. Detailed financial statements, which was mentioned, and that was brought up. At some point in time, the developer will turn over the association to the collective group of homeowners. And when that is done, there will be a very specific and very detailed financial statement that runs with the turnover of that. In addition to that, the mention was just made about right now there are up to 4 notices of violation that can come out from the homeowners association. The request was to please reduce those to no more than 3, and the applicant has agreed to do that. Another item that came up that was not mentioned, but we have memorialized it in these comments that you all have a copy with, is when Jay Knight did his trees, he planted big trees, and they were growing into some of the units, and that was causing a problem. So what the applicant has agreed to is to coordinate with the city's arborist, to have the arborist suggest the type of tree that would be appropriate for planting, the time frame of when that planting should take place, and for the applicant then to do the planning in keeping with what the city arborist has put forward as far as suggestion is concerned. Then, as mentioned, there was a statement of very high appreciation of getting the apartments out of the mix of the development scheme. Also, the mention was made as to the current advisory board, and when the, management company, and when the association is turned over to the homeowners, and there is perhaps a new management company that is selected, the applicant has agreed that the current management company will properly transition through with any new management company that should be brought into place.
Pete, we run out of time.
Sir?
We run out of time.
Oh, okay.
Thank you so much.
I'm gonna ask you a question.
Yes.
And not, having the covenant available, I don't know, but I do know one thing, and that is that most covenants say that a community should have an annual meeting. And during the annual meeting, the community should receive financial statements. This has become too consistent with too many communities telling me that they're not receiving financial statements. They're paying assessments. As long as they're paying assessments, they are entitled to receive financial statements once a month, not at turnover, not once a month, once a year, but not at turnover. So that's the first point I want to make. The second one is the request to reduce the number of violation notices from 4 to 3. So what is the process? What is the process for notices to be sent? And if they are sent based on 1, 2, and 3, and 4, then why should you reduce them down to a certain number? I don't understand why that request is being made. And it has something to do with the process, and not knowing the process doesn't help very much. Then the last thing is, according to the covenant, does the community turn over after all of the homes were sold, or at some percentage of when the homes are sold?
You know what you were saying. It's typically 70% is typically what it is. I do not have benefit of that declaration, so I do not know the answer to that.
So the point I'm trying to make is that at some point in time, if there is an advisory committee, and I'm really glad that
Yes.
there is, then that group should be involved and should be working with the developer for that transition process to make sure that it's not an abrupt process where you don't have people in place to understand the history and what's going on. So,
Totally agree with you on that point. And as far as the transitioning is concerned, that's why we gave the affirmative statement in here that we would work with whatever the management company is now, should they be selected a new management company, to assure that there will be a smooth transition between the two.
So, I mean, that's a good point, but there are a lot of administrative documents that the community is going to need to have transition, and the advisory committee needs to understand that process. So that's why it's so important for the developer to work with that advisory committee before that transition occurs.
Right, I would
That's
agree
very
with that.
important.
And given the flavor of what Tim committed to, there was a request made, and it's one of the items that is mentioned in the sheet here, that as there are items that are necessary to go out for bid, that the advisory committee be involved with that bid process. And so there has been agreement by the applicant to do that. Also, there has been an issue on the dumpsters on the property and non-residents coming in. And so the applicant has agreed to engage a security service for a twofold purpose. Number one, to be able to police the streets so that there is not inappropriate parking going on the streets, but also to police the dumpster activity so that you do not have a situation, which evidently has been occurring, where non-residents have been coming in and using those dumpster facilities.
And then lastly, all of this really should be in writing, so that everyone can be clear about what is been agreed to.
Right. Mr. Baker, I'll entertain a motion.
Thank you. I have to speak. So thank you, Councilwoman Gilliard. And she hit on a couple of the things that the head of the HOA was concerned about, the financials more than anything. And I was operating under the auspice that they received those documents that you disseminated. I think we're really, really close. And I do believe that it should be in writing as well. That's their concern, that the developers, just like many other developers, take them all and go home after they get approval. And we're really, really close. What I'm going to propose or make a motion to hold and give you guys an opportunity to converse again with the community, get everything settled in writing. I believe that there should be transparency in those financials. I was advised that they received a simple, we don't do that. That's not what we do. As she pointed out, that is unacceptable. I would like for you guys to come back and, as opposed to making a permanent decision on something that's so close to be to an agreement, I'm going to make a motion to hold until the next meeting.
I second.
Properly moved in second. Any discussion? Mr. Baker, I would say fine, but I would caution us. If you ain't at the table, you on the menu. And I would caution you people that if you're going to be a part, you need to make the meeting. We can't continue to hold zonings up because 2 or 3 people didn't get to come. So this is our second deferral on this. And I hope that whatever you do, that people will come and then we'll decide on what we're going to do. So next time you come in here, all this, I couldn't get the meeting.
Oh, no, that's not the case, and I don't want to put that out to our public either. But I want them to know with certainty, if we're talking about changing the tennis court into a parking lot, when you have people who need a parking pass, that's something that's close. And I think that they need to converse before we make a permanent decision on it.
I'm with you. Okay. Good. All right, let's vote. That passes unanimously to hold to the next meeting. Am I correct? Yes. You know, I understand we got a lot of holding to the next meeting. We got a new agenda also.
That's the 28th, not the next meeting, because if we do zonings at the 4th meeting.
Right. That'll be 28th, yes. All right, that'll give you ample time to have 2 or 3 meetings. Yeah. Okay, Mr. Taylor.
Number 4, request for modification, and 18-004, that's in District 4.
The applicant, Michelle McCauley, is requesting to reduce side yard setbacks from 7.5 to 3.5. The property located at 4644 Marching Lane, Lexington Park in District 2. The property is located along the Mooney Road. And as you see here, lot 108 and 107 are properties that are adjacent to each other. You're seeing here where it meets the separation for the structures, however, it doesn't meet the separation for the side yard setback. The past zoning condition required of 2005 Z0096 required a condition allowing for there to be a minimum yard setback of 7.5. However, the applicant did not meet that request at the time of construction. Might I mention that these homes are already constructed, and they're now requesting there be a 3.5, allow there to be a setback to 3.5, as you can see here. This is a home that is constructed. And these are the two homes, lots 108 and 107. Modification request signed, of course, and staff is recommended approval. Applicant is present if you have any questions.
Applicant?
Good evening, Mayor and Commission Council. My name is Michelle McCauley. I work for LaCroix Engineering, 3475 Corporate Lake, Georgia. I'm here on behalf of our client, P.R. Horton. We are asking for a deferral this evening. Even though staff is recommending approval, we are trying to resolve this matter outside of requiring modification. What happened was this home was built, there was an error in the survey. And when they went to go close the home, it was found that the house was actually sitting 3.9 feet off the side yard instead of 7.5. What works in our favor is the house that's adjacent to us already sits further than it sits exactly 14.2 feet off the property line. So between the houses, there's 18.1 feet. The requirement is for 15 feet. What we're doing is working with the adjacent neighbor to purchase 272 square feet, which will bring this home into compliance with the zoning code and with the building code. But at this point, we're working with the lender and have to get a lender approval for a partial release to sell that property. But so at that point, we're very close, but that's why we're asking for a deferral.
All right, is there anybody for or against? Well, I'll close that public hearing. If not, Ms. Gilliam?
Yeah. That's what I was gonna ask for. So,
We'll ask you.
I was gonna ask make a motion for this, for M18004 to be deferred.
Second.
Properly moved to second. Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? That passes. Next, Mr. Clerk.
Thank you.
Your next item under resolutions is Resolution 2018-044, resolution adopting a City of South Fulton Human Resources Policies and Procedures Manual and for other lawful purposes.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I so move to approve resolution adopting HR policies and procedures manual, resolution 2018-044.
Second. Properly moved to second. Any discussion? Yes.
The holiday calendar does not have election day listed. I'm not asking for a motion tonight, but I do not want anyone to be surprised. I will be asking for one. Duly noted. Thank you.
All right. All those in favor? That passes unanimously. Mr. Clerk?
Next item is a resolution finding necessity to increase municipal powers under Georgia Urban Development Law to address community blight and for other lawful purposes. This is sponsored by Councilmember Rao under Resolution 2018-045.
Mr. Rao, I entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to accept or adopt resolution 2018-045.
Properly moved and second. Any discussion? All those in favor? That passes unanimously. Mr. Clerk?
And the next item is a resolution amending the City of South Fulton's official holiday schedule, recognizing Indigenous Peoples' Day and for other lawful purposes. This item is sponsored by Mayor Pro Tem Baker under Resolution 2018-046.
Mr. Baker, I accept the motion.
I can make a motion to accept resolution 2018-046.
Second.
Been properly moved and second. Any discussion? All those in favor? That passes unanimously.
Under ordinances, for first reading, an ordinance to amend Title II Taxation of the City Code to create a community redevelopment tax incentive program to encourage property rehabilitation and for other lawful purposes. This item is co-sponsored by Council Members Rao and Willis under Ordinance 2018-029.
Ms. Rao, Ms. Willis?
It's the first read.
It's the first read? Okay. Any questions, anybody have? Okay, let's move on next.
All right, the second item under ordinances was held with the adoption of today's agenda. So that takes you to letter D under action items, a presentation and request to adopt a tentative millage rate, which will require a levy of 11.579 mills for 2018.
Mr. CEO, one thing I understand, this is a tentative millage rate, right? So you just asking for an ability to publicize?
Yeah, this will be a tentative so that we can go ahead and prepare for public hearings. We can't have public hearings without your tentative.
Okay, that's what we need to hear. Anybody has any questions? Okay, thank you, sir. We have to adopt, we're going to take a vote on that then, right?
Yes.
I entertain a motion.
I make a motion to accept to adopt the tentative millage rate.
Second. The property moved to second. Any discussion? Yeah. Let's vote. I got stuck. Okay, that's unanimous. Ms. Clark?
That takes you to the city manager's report. This is a monthly city manager report to the elected officials for June 2018.
All right, so good evening. I think we have provided a variety of information in advance. Can you hear me now? We've provided a little bit of information in advance, but I did want to highlight a few different activities for the council. I think you heard today from Chief Judge Sellers, who highlighted the South Fulton Green Team, and so I think she let a little bit of the information out before we were able to give you guys a write-up on it, but I think that's for good reason. So I think council has been extremely focused on ensuring that, you know, our city streets and our different thoroughfares and roadways, really every part of the city meets the beautification standards and accessibility that our residents deserve. And so while we don't have as much money to focus in on some of those things prior to us receiving transportation, we have partnered with the diversion program to make sure that while we're giving community service credits to all of these other municipalities, that we kind of connect the dots for our own citizens. And so the South Fulton Green Team allows people who are going through the diversion program and that are engaged with our court system, if they qualify for the diversion program, then they can help us keep our streets and our communities at the level and quality that council expects. Yes, ma'am.
So kudos to you. I'm super excited about that. My first question is, when do they start?
They've already started. So we're not calling it the official launch just yet, because I think we've only had about 10 people, maybe 10 or less, from the diversion program who are going through it. We're still kind of aligning this with the FY19 budget, and so I would say that it officially begins in FY19, but we're allowing the process to go through now. So we have our waivers and all of the things that we have to implement the program, but we want a very consistent schedule, and it's kind of hard to plan because both the diversion program and this connection, this coordination between departments is new. So I would call the official launch in FY19, but we're having activities today.
And how will you determine priority?
So I think there's enough activity that we're coordinating in general to where we're not necessarily prioritizing based on, I guess, people and participants, but really our normal work schedule. So Parks already had some of this activity, and we know that Fulton County, who currently does transportation, is also managing it. So, you know, behind the scenes, we've talked quite a bit with council about areas that have been missed or that they don't have the capacity. That's the priority right now. And once we're in total control, then we'll actually just schedule it out because we'll have all of the resources in-house.
Councilwoman Willis?
So just for clarification, this Go Green diversion program is not specific for parks. It's going to be for all areas throughout the city of South Fulton.
Yes, ma'am, that's correct. And we're calling it the South Fulton Green Team. Okay. I don't know, I'll read something somewhere and I just like the name. So,
yeah, that's fine.
All right. Go ahead, Mr. Manager.
In addition to that, I think another area just under parks, I mean, that has been just a big priority for our council. And so our staff has started to just research the master planning process. I think we've talked to you guys in the FY19 budget priorities and goal setting session, and parks really did remain very high up, specifically for capital investment around maintenance. And so as such, while we look at that in the FY19 budget process, we're also looking at that master plan process and who we can get to help us do that. As we were kind of looking through the selections of some of our staff members, some of the people who were interviewing has brought some insights into how their municipalities leveraged colleges and universities. So we started a conversation with Georgia State University, and thanks to the council, even before I got here, we have a relationship with the Carl Vincent Institute. And so we kind of want to leverage both of those to see if we can save some money on, and get high quality for the Parks Master Plan, the Economic Development Master Plan, and the overall strategic plan. So those activities are happening now.
I want to start something a little bit different here now.
Okay.
When it comes to government interacting with our institutions of higher learning. Nobody ever says anything about the Atlanta University Center. I said that when I was a commissioner, and I'm saying you've had some of the worldwide known economists in the country who were teaching there. I think we need to levy some of those schools also. I'm not talking for Morehouse.
Understood. Well, I'll tell you, I mean, so now, I'll tell you, I mean, I think, Mayor, you know, we just sat down with the Atlanta University Center, and we haven't made the traction just yet, but I think they're on the radar. Also, Clayton State University, which is another local university, but I just mentioned Georgia State because that's where I went. So there's a bunch of colleges and universities. This is not something new. But absolutely. We said it even on the county level. That we have to really go in and look at our Atlanta University Center. Absolutely. And pull on some of that talent, even if it is from Clark. Absolutely. Well, I will leave that one alone. I want to say there is one other area that we want to kind of highlight when we talk about public safety. So I think, I know that we've made a police chief selection today, but I would be remiss without, I've had the opportunity to talk to Chief Rogers, and she was actually excited about the selection, and has been just, a champion of the city of South Fulton, and has been an excellent steward of all of our police services. Extremely thankful for not only her service to date, but really what she's going to do in partnership with our new police chief moving forward. I think the two of them, along with some of the other staff members, we've got a dynamic group that is going to push our city to the next level. So really excited about that, and I want to take the liberty to just kind of mention that. And I know you already know that, but just wanted to highlight that. Sure. I think another area in public safety that I'm extremely proud of, and I think it goes to the credit of both Chief Rogers and Chief Few, and some of even the new staff members who kind of dived in. It has been a very difficult implementation of emergency medical services long before I came to the city of South Fulton. But I'll tell you, since we've all kind of come in, and with the help of council and our staff advocating for the state to open up the zones and allow competitive bidding process, it's very early, but the numbers for Grady in their short period of time have been astounding. The numbers have gone from a 24-minute response time to sub 11 minutes, and they haven't fully implemented their full array of services. And so it doesn't sound like a huge number, it's a huge drop, but that's the difference between someone living and dying. And so I think that, I definitely like to recognize the efforts of Chief Few in leading this and bringing together collaboration around the region, and really the service to our citizens. And thankful for council advocating and having those meetings down at the Gold Dome and behind the scenes to really make sure our citizens get what they need. So I wanted to make sure to highlight that as well. And I think just finally, when we talk about economic and workforce development and all of the things that play into that, I know we have the Mayor's Walk that is coming up. So I won't speak to that. I know you'll probably talk about that later on and, you know, the purpose of it. But I've gotten the final draft of the actual Mayor's Walk report that I'll be submitting to you tomorrow, which I think we're really excited about because it shows the response to government. But the focuses that we're hearing from our citizens really do align with that of the councils. I think we've got a city that is on the same page, which is very helpful for our economic development future. And so I think, you know, just timing wise, I know I wanted to submit the FY19 budget on the 24th, and because of some things outside of our control, we couldn't. But just today, while taking some notes, I think we were trying to figure out what the name would be for what we're going to do with economic development. And so in your package, you'll get a recommendation to change the name of the department and some alignment to make it Destination South Fulton. And so the reason we will be calling it Destination South Fulton is because just like some of the things you heard today and some of the things we've seen with the Mayor's Walk, we want everybody to know that this is the destination for all good things, as you like to say. And so I'm excited to make that recommendation and prepare to send the budget for you. And so that concludes my overall report.
So, in your report, what is the status of the website launch at OpenGov?
So the OpenGov platform, I think, is ready and loaded. You made some changes, you asked for some recommended changes in the budget priorities goal setting that we should have added by the end of the week. And I don't know if Ms. Freeman is still here, but I think we should have the full phase 1 loaded by Monday. Yeah. And I believe we may be able to get it done by Friday, but with her being a fairly new director, I kind of want to give her time to give it a last minute look. I think OpenGov is a part of phase 1, and what may not be the first week is our C-Click Fix, the 311 integration. We haven't been able to get that fully connected because of the point people in the existing tail line, but we can get you a report on that. That may be the only thing that may delay it. And if they feel like they can get it done in a day or two after Monday, we'll notify you, because I think that would be a good thing to have it all done. Okay. We also extended the council pages, as you guys asked, to kind of make sure those maps are accurate, and so I think you'll be very pleased. So we may try to do a demo working on this budget, but we may try to do a demo before it's released, if you guys are open to that. Okay.
Mr. City Manager, is there any update on when we can start getting the crimes and statistics based on district?
Yes, so that is something that we're working on. I think you know we're partnering with Fulton County to get some of that information now. What we've started to do just right away is get you those weekly crime stats that I think you're getting, and it'll probably take us until mid-August, but by then it should be done.
Okay, and
I believe I'll let the police subject matter experts, we'll get you the information on memo to confirm that, but I'm pretty sure mid-August.
okay, and I want to report to you, I know you had a family matter to deal with last weekend, but your staff was extraordinary for the
superstars over there, man.
I want to thank you for allowing public safety to support me, and also park and recreation staff. The community thoroughly enjoyed it, and I'm pretty sure you saw it.
Oh man, listen, it was people calling me from everywhere. So we've got a little situation where we've got a new family member coming, my nephew, the third boy, coming, but also a family member that's experiencing some tragedies. I had to take care of both of those this weekend, but I tell you, people were blowing up my phone. I think they enjoyed it, the staff enjoyed it more than y'all did. So yeah, some superstars that we have, so excited that they did.
Thank you for allowing us to support.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you, Mr. Manager. Madam Attorney, do you have anything that we all going over?
I do. I have a request to the council if we could try to coordinate some dates for the training. I know we passed, and this is the open records, open meeting, Robert's rules, and the economic development and property rehabilitation. We threw some dates out, but it didn't work for everyone. Our forensic accountant is going on vacation through the 1st, but he will be available on the 2nd and the 3rd of August, given the council schedule after the 3rd, as well as he will have surgery and will be out for about 2 to 3 weeks during that period too. If the council is available, we're requesting either the 2nd or the 3rd.
Okay.
Is,
Ms. Rose, go ahead.
is there any way that, we could consider doing this after the budget? Because we got public hearings for millage rate, we got public hearings for budget. I think, and then we got council meeting as well. Is there a rush as to why we're doing this now?
There is no rush. It's at the council's discretion.
Okay. And the other thing is there any way, we talked last time that we had a couple of legislation pieces that we needed to have, that we needed to legislate prior to transition. It was like 17 pieces of legislation. So have you gotten with the city manager and established a priority? Because we need to get that information so we can divvy up and figure out what we want to work on, so we can make sure we have our ordinances in place prior to transition.
Well, here's the way your ordinances are gonna work with the transition. If there is something that your staff or the city is relying substantially on right now that has not yet been adopted, that's Fulton County's, then we need to make that a priority and get those ordinances adopted. So that would take me sitting down with the administration and figuring out what are you relying on heavily that's Fulton County's, and let's get that transferred. So there's nothing happened, there's no date this year where you lose the ability to adopt ordinances if they are not adopted by a certain date. What happens is that you lose the ability to rely on Fulton County's ordinances. So if there's something you're relying on right now for Fulton County, then we need to make that a priority, because we don't want to have nothing to rely on and be just rushed to adopt it when November 30 comes.
But at the last council meeting, there was specifically mentioned that there were about 17 pieces of legislation that was important for us to work on prior to transition. And you were supposed to get with the city manager, and you all were supposed to get that information to the council. And what I don't want to do is have our backs up against the wall, because we only have about 3 or 4 months before November 8, 2018. If you go back and look at the last tape, you all specifically said it was 17 pieces.
Well, the mayor actually said that, and I think he was saying that there are at least 17 pieces that are critical for the city's administration that he would like to see us have adopted sooner than later. So I am scheduled to meet with the city manager's office on Monday, and we will go through all of this, and we will present something back saying these are the items that we think are priority.
Okay, Mr. Lee, do you have anything else besides this?
There was one item that I did forget. I know that we mentioned it during the budget goal setting and priorities, that there is, at the end of the year, you do a budget modification to kind of clean some things up. I think the one example that we highlighted was that for community development, we've actually, I think you saw from the increase in building permits, which is a very good thing. It means we brought in more revenue. But the way that contract is set up, it means we've also had some additional expenses. And so, we have to make a budget amendment to clean that up. And I think there's some other areas, including some resources for the staff and elected body and things of that nature, that we will bring forward. And our hope is to do so. I think there's a July 31st requirement for the budget hearings. A very small amendment. We get you the information in advance, but just giving you a heads up that it is our plan to add that to that session instead of waiting until the August 14th meeting. So I hope you guys might be amicable to that.
Okay. All right. Mr. Lee, close it out.
We do a closing comments. I have a question.
We ain't got to go.
Okay. So one, I agree with Councilwoman Lewis, actually, that I would like to see that postponed. I'm not available August 2nd and 3rd. I know the majority of council have kids, and that's like the first week of school. So, and we already have about 8 meetings a month scheduled, or more for budget and things like that. So anything that we can hold till after October would be great. Secondly, I wanted to say, I've been in conversations, I know with you, Mr. City Manager and Mr. Mayor, about a first base, second base, third base, sort of a visual timeline of how legislation is coming. And I think that is probably something we should get on a work session sooner rather than later.
Yeah, we're working on that. All right. Okay, the only thing holding us between home is your comment.
We don't have to
So, we're gonna start, to my right this time, real fast.
First of all, I want to thank everyone for coming out to the Economic Development Summit, especially Councilwoman Jackson and Councilman Baker. It was a group effort. I also want to say that we got through, I haven't seen an agenda packet this big since we started back in May 2017. It's 300 something pages, and we are going to be out of here before 10 o'clock. So I want to say, first of all, thank you to the mayor for your leadership. I also want to say that does not happen just because we worked really hard in this meeting. We have been working really hard as a council to talk through a lot of things. We talked through a lot of things before they get here. So I hope that we can continue that. We've been very supportive of each other. So I just wanted to give special thanks to our council for that. South Fulton forever.
Ms. Gilliard?
I want to thank everyone also for coming out tonight. And I agree with us going back and forth. That really does cut down the time. I don't know when we finish this early, so that's really, really great. I am still struggling with subdivisions and the issues that they go through, particularly before and after turnover. So that's a real big thorn. And there are really a lot of issues that they're being left with to have to deal with. So that's really, really my focus, except for the back to school that we're having on Friday. So I'm really excited about that because this is the first one that I will participate in, and I can't wait to see what happens.
Thank you everyone for coming out and hanging out with us until 9:36. So we're super excited to get out of here. But I just want to remind you to come out on Saturday, July 28th, to the Sandtown Recreational Park. We will be having our back to school book bash, and we also will have kind of like carnival style, but one of the great things is that you will be able to get to dunk the elected officials, and our mayor will be in the dunking booth. So we do encourage you all to come out. I know Councilwoman Rao will also be in the dunking booth. I haven't decided quite yet if I'm going to be in there, but I think it will be a great community engagement, and I would love for you all to come out and participate. And again, I had a good time in District 3 last Friday night. I could have been doing a number of things, but I hung out and watched Wakanda, and it was hot. But we had a good time as a community, so let's keep doing those types of things. All right.
Ditto to what Councilwoman Dunn said, but we also have a number of health screenings on Saturday, and that's very important. It's our first inaugural Healthy South Fulton Day, and we're going to hopefully grow this event. We already have over 1,000 RSVP, so it's going to be a big, fun field day.
Okay. Ms. Rose?
Okay, thank you for coming out. I just want to remind everybody that I am partnering with the mayor and a couple of Commissioner Arrington and a state legislator with Camp Creek Middle School with Seaborn Lee Elementary School to go in one of our disadvantaged communities on August 1st. We are still accepting donations. We are going to give them their uniform shirts. We're taking book bags and school supplies in Hickory Park apartments. So if you all want to give any donations or bring the donations to Hickory Park on August 1st we'll be there from 9 until 12. Please come out and join us. It's on the Rezoning Road. Thank you for all who came out to Wakanda Day in the Park. We thoroughly enjoyed ourselves, and people are asking me when is the next one. I will say stay tuned, because that was a lot of work, but it made it worth it. I don't think I got home until like 11:30 at night, and that was because I stayed afterwards. And thank you, Mayor, for staying with me the entire time. I stayed and hung out with the park, the staff as they were cleaning up, and they were even having fun cleaning up the park. So thank you.
All right, Ms. Jackson.
Thanks to everybody for coming out. Last year we had a book bag event, and we actually partnered with World Changers. This year, we're just gonna do evening with the councilwoman, and with District 5, 6, and 7, our councilman will be there along with Commissioner Emma Darnell. And we will be just fellowshipping, talking about what we need to do in the city from 6 until 8:30, and then we're gonna do our movie on the green as well. And Commissioner Darnell is sponsoring that for us. And we ask everybody to come out and enjoy. You'll have free popcorn, there are food trucks. We're gonna do the whole 9. So we enjoy. Oh yeah, see, we had planned out first, but you all just jumped out. Okay, we'll see you then, August 3rd.
Yes, what she said about the last event, I was present. I just wanted to say thank you to everybody for coming out and staying with us, as well as thank you to our council, City of South Fulton. I'm downplaying it. I'm really, really excited about the historic feat we had tonight by accepting Indigenous People Day. I'd like to pay homage to my grandmother and our ancestors as well. And proud to say that finally in the City of South Fulton, and the first time in the state of Georgia, that the only Christopher we acknowledge is Wallace. And Christopher, what's his name? Yeah, Mittal. So, as well as Christopher Pike. So, yeah, I'm sorry, I economically. Yeah, but thank you.
Right. Thank you, Margaret. Listen, the mayor's walk is tomorrow in District 3. It starts at, 1 o'clock? 1 o'clock. We're going to be staging in front of Publix. Please come out and have a good time. This time I think, Mr. Manager, we can make every business. Unlike Old National, where you got 60 businesses, you want to make 30. Okay, so I think we can make them all. One request that I've heard from some folks, when you call our city hall, and they refer you to, say, Ms. Guns, she's not there, would you ask the staff to put something on their answer machine saying something, this is Ms. Guns, I'm not here right now, because they never know if they got the right person or not.
Okay. Oh, I get it.
That's what I'm saying.
Yep.
That's what I'm saying, because if I call you and you just refer me, I don't even know if I got you or not. Oh. That's all I'm saying. So if a message picks up, say, this is Khalid, yada, yada, yada.
And I think that's going to be integrated into our web feature. That's one of the connections.
I just heard it from a couple of citizens,
we'll
and
make sure
I thought it was legitimate enough to make the statement tonight. So, well, anyway, thank you all so much. One time we're going to get together, all of us up here, going to have one big event somewhere. I don't know when it's going to be, but one day we're going to have one big event. All right, okay, let's go home. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Would like to make a motion to adjourn.
I'll say it. Oh, yeah. I'll raise your hand.